My son's Christmas celebration seemed perfect. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine, the lights twinkled gently on the tree, and laughter echoed through every corner. I had spent weeks planning, baking, and wrapping gifts, making sure everything was just right. The kids were thrilled. My spouse was smiling like we were the happiest family in the world, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe that life couldn't get better than this. And then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I stared at the screen, my hand freezing mid-reach. Normally, I ignore calls from numbers I don't recognize, but something in that instant made me pick it up. "Come home immediately," a voice said. Sharp. I could feel the tension in it, as if the world itself had tilted and was demanding I listen. I blinked. My heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" I managed, trying to steady my voice. "It doesn't matter," the voice said. "Just hurry." I don't know why, but I obeyed. I left the celebration mid-cheer, the laughter fading behind me like a dream slipping away. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside, my thoughts racing. Who could it be? What could have possibly happened that required me to leave my son's celebration when I got home? I couldn't believe my eyes. The front door was ajar. Inside, the living room looked normal. But then I noticed the subtle things. A photo frame knocked over, a window slightly open, the faint scent of someone else in the house. My pulse quickened. I called out, no one answered. The silence was heavier than anything I had ever felt. And then I saw them. Not strangers, not intruders in the usual sense, but a figure crouched in the corner, shivering, terrified. It was my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, clutching a letter in her hand. She looked up at me, eyes wide with fear. You have to see this," she whispered, her voice trembling. I took the letter, hands shaking. Inside, the words were simple but chilling. "If you don't act fast, everything will be gone. They've been planning this for years. Only you can stop it." I sank into a chair, gripping the paper, trying to make sense of it. Who was they? What had been planned for years? And why me? Before I could gather my thoughts, Mrs. Thompson began telling her story. She had been watching over our neighborhood for decades, she said, noticing patterns, incidents, things no one else had paid attention to. And now, she insisted, our family was in danger, targeted by someone close, someone we trusted implicitly. I felt a chill run down my spine. My mind raced back through memories, conversations, subtle signs I had ignored. And then it hit me. My own brother. The one I had shared every childhood secret with. The one who knew our family's deepest vulnerabilities, our savings, our habits, our weaknesses. He had always been charming, the life of every gathering. But lately, things didn't add up. Strange phone calls, sudden trips, questions about our finances and home security. I had brushed them off. How could I have been so blind? I knew I had to act. Not just for my family, but for the legacy of trust and love I had spent my life building. I called him, feigning calm, pretending ignorance. I needed to lure him, to confront him with evidence before making any rash decisions. The hours passed slowly, each second dragging like an eternity. My mind was a storm of fear, anger, and sorrow. How could someone I loved, someone I had trusted unconditionally, betray us like this? And yet, I also felt determination rising. If betrayal was to be met, it would be with courage, wit, and resolve. When he arrived, smiling as if nothing were wrong, I could barely contain myself. Every detail I had noticed, every strange behavior, every secret he had thought buried, I laid it out in front of him. I watched his expression change from arrogance to shock, then to fear. "Why?" I asked him, voice steady but heavy with emotion. He tried to deflect, to blame circumstances, to justify his actions. But I had Mrs. Thompson's observations, the patterns I had uncovered, the subtle clues that only someone living inside the family could notice. The truth was undeniable. By the end of that night, justice had been served not through anger, not through revenge, but through the revelation of truth. My family was shaken, but intact. The betrayal was exposed, the danger neutralized, and the lesson learned. Vigilance, love, and trust are fragile. They require attention, care, and sometimes painful confrontation. The next morning, the house was quiet again, the twinkle of the Christmas lights reflecting off the snow outside. I returned to my son's celebration, carrying the weight of the night, but also a sense of relief. I realized that holidays, celebrations, they are fleeting. But family, the real bond between us, is eternal. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is protection, awareness, and the courage to face harsh truths. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every flicker of the lights, made me tense. I kept replaying every interaction with my brother, analyzing what I missed, what signs I ignored. I realized how subtle betrayal can be hidden in small gestures, in quiet questions, in a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I walked into the kitchen as if nothing had happened, my son laughing about his new toys, my spouse asking if I'd slept well. And yet beneath the surface, I was calculating my next steps. Trust had been broken, but I needed to protect the family to ensure that nothing like this could ever happen again. I spent the day reviewing our family accounts, our documents, everything my brother had ever touched. Every irregularity, every small diversion of funds, every questionable decision, it was all there, like a trail of breadcrumbs. And suddenly, the full picture emerged. He hadn't just been planning to take advantage of us financially. He had been manipulating relationships, creating discord, trying to isolate me from those I loved. I felt anger rise, but also sadness. How could someone I loved, someone I grew up with, become capable of such calculated betrayal? But I had to focus. Anger would cloud my judgment. I had to be meticulous, had to be smart. That evening I confronted him again. Not in anger, not in yelling, but calmly, with every piece of evidence laid out before him. I wanted him to see that nothing was hidden anymore. Every lie, every deceit, every manipulation, it all came into the light. His face changed slowly, from surprise to fear, then to desperation. He tried excuses, tried blaming circumstances, tried to twist the truth. But I was ready. Every answer, every rebuttal, every false claim, I dismantled calmly, methodically, like a chess master, taking apart an opponent's strategy. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. Honesty. I told him, you've lost more than you realize. Not just money, not just trust, but the family that loved you. That's something no scheme can ever replace. He tried to speak, but I stopped him. No, let the truth speak for itself. After that, I called my parents and my spouse into the room. I wanted them to see the full picture. I wanted them to understand how close we had come to disaster and how carefully we had avoided it. When they saw the evidence, they didn't just feel shock, they felt relief. Relief that the danger had been exposed, relief that the deception could no longer harm us. But the aftermath wasn't easy. My brother left in anger and humiliation. The house felt heavy, silent in a way it had never been. I walked through the rooms, remembering the laughter, the joy, the trust that had once filled these walls. And I realized something important. Family is fragile. Trust is delicate. Sometimes even the ones we love most can become our greatest threat. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt the sense of safety in my home. I reinforced our security, I reestablished financial boundaries, and I spent time rebuilding emotional trust with my spouse and my son. Every evening, I sat by the Christmas tree, watching my son's eyes light up at the ornaments, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I realized that vigilance and love are not opposites, they are intertwined. Protecting your family doesn't mean distrust, it means awareness. And yet, even with all the danger past, I carried the lesson in my heart. I understood that betrayal leaves scars, visible and invisible. But it also leaves insight, the kind that sharpens judgment and strengthens bonds. I had learned that courage isn't only facing the world outside, is facing the darkness that can hide in the people we trust. Months passed. The holidays returned, quieter but more meaningful. My son's laughter once again filled the house, but now with a deeper sense of appreciation. Every ornament, every light, every song reminded me not just of celebration, but of survival, vigilance, and resilience. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that call from the unknown number. Come home immediately. At the time, it felt like a warning, a disruption, an intrusion. But now, I know it was more than that. It was a chance to see the truth before it was too late. A chance to protect the ones I love, and a chance to understand that family isn't just about shared blood or memories. It's about trust, vigilance, and the courage to act when everything seems lost. That Christmas, what could have been a disaster became a lesson. A lesson about love and betrayal, about fear and courage, about mistakes and redemption. I tell this story not to frighten, but to remind myself and anyone who listens that life is unpredictable. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't under the tree. Sometimes the greatest gift is knowing that the people you love are safe, that trust has been restored, and that you have the strength to face even the darkest truths. And yes, my son's Christmas celebration went on that year. The laughter returned, the light shone. But beneath the joy was a deeper understanding that every smile, every hug, every moment of peace is precious. Because sometimes the world can surprise you with danger in the places you least expect, but love, courage, and truth will always guide you home. Even after the confrontation, even after the truth came out, I couldn't shake the feeling that danger might still linger. Trust, once broken, never fully returns the way it was. So I remained vigilant. I observed, I questioned, I made sure every detail of our home and our lives was safe. It wasn't paranoia, it was responsibility. One evening, weeks later, my son came running to me, eyes sparkling. He held a small envelope, carefully addressed. I took it, opening it slowly. Inside was a letter from my brother. At first, I didn't know what to feel. Rage, satisfaction, curiosity. The letter read simply, "I was wrong. I let greed and envy blind me. I see now the pain I caused. I am sorry. I will not contact you again, but I hope someday you can forgive me." I sat there, holding the letter, emotions swirling. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. I folded the letter carefully and put it away. I wasn't ready to forgive him entirely, not yet. But I knew I could release the anger. That Christmas, I focused on my son. Every laugh, every hug, every moment of joy reminded me why I had fought so hard to protect this family. I realized that life doesn't give warnings twice. Sometimes the universe sends you a jolt, like that call from the unknown number to remind you of what really matters. I spent the following months rebuilding. I reinforced our security, checked our finances meticulously, and created safeguards to prevent any similar betrayal. But more importantly, I rebuilt emotional trust. I spent more time with my son, teaching him not just the joy of celebration, but the value of awareness, courage, and integrity. And slowly, the house felt lighter again. The shadows of betrayal that had lingered were fading. The lights on the Christmas tree glowed brighter, not just because of the bulbs, but because of the renewed warmth in our hearts. Looking back now, I realized that night was a turning point. It taught me that family is fragile, trust is sacred, and love requires courage not just in the happy moments, but in the darkest ones as well. I also learned that sometimes the most important actions are the ones no one else sees. The careful investigation, the silent preparation, the internal struggle between anger and reason. That night, the unknown call that sent me rushing home could have been just a nuisance, a prank, a coincidence, but it wasn't. It was a wake-up call, a chance to protect what mattered most. And in responding, I found something else too, the resilience of my family. The unbreakable bond between parent and child, and the quiet strength within myself that I didn't know existed. Even now, years later, when I think of that Christmas, it isn't the decorations, the gifts, or even the laughter that stands out the most. It's the lesson. The understanding that life can be fragile, trust can be betrayed, and love can be tested. But courage, vigilance, and truth will always prevail if you have the strength to face them. My son, now grown, sometimes asks me about that night. I tell him the story carefully, slowly, emphasizing the lessons more than the suspense. I want him to understand that vigilance and love aren't opposites. They are intertwined. That family isn't just about shared blood, it's about loyalty, protection, and standing together when everything seems lost. And that, my dears, is the story I carry in my heart. The story of a Christmas that could have ended in disaster, of betrayal that almost destroyed us, and of the courage that brought us back together. It's a reminder that life is unpredictable, that the people we trust can surprise us, and that true strength lies in protecting those we love, even when the world seems against us. Yes, that Christmas, my son's celebration went on. The lights sparkled. The laughter returned. The house was filled with warmth and joy once more. And beneath it all, quietly, steadily, was the knowledge that we had survived, that we had learned, and that we would face the future together, stronger, wiser, and more aware of the fragility and beauty of family. Because in the end, what matters most isn't perfection, it's love. It isn't gifts, it's trust. It isn't laughter, it's courage. And that night, through fear, betrayal, and uncertainty, I learned that the greatest gift a family can have is each other, always. Even after the letter, I couldn't simply return to life as if nothing had happened. The betrayal had left scars, not visible ones, but the kind that weigh on your mind and heart. I found myself replaying every memory, every conversation, every gesture I had shared with my brother, searching for the moment when things went wrong. It was like walking through a maze of trust and deceit, and I had to be careful not to lose myself in it. I began noticing details I had once ignored, the way he lingered too long over our finances, the questions he asked about our routines, even the subtle expressions on his face when we discussed family matters. I realized that betrayal often hides in the mundane, in ordinary moments that seem harmless until you see the pattern. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, I sat alone by the fireplace, thinking about what had almost happened. I remembered my son, laughing so freely just days before, unaware of the storm brewing behind the walls. I realized how fragile happiness can be, how easily it can be threatened, and how important it is to protect it. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, but it was a responsibility I accepted willingly. I also began reflecting on my own mistakes. Could I have noticed the signs sooner? Could I have prevented my brother from reaching this point? The answers weren't simple. Sometimes betrayal comes from those we trust most, and no amount of caution can completely shield us. But awareness, vigilance, and preparation can make the difference between disaster and survival. Days passed, and the tension lingered. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. Every unexpected knock at the door made me tense, but I didn't let fear control me. Instead, I focused on rebuilding, on creating a home that was both joyful and safe. I taught my son, subtly but deliberately, the importance of observation, caution, and understanding human nature. Not to scare him, but to prepare him for the real world, a world where trust is precious and must be handled with care. Then came a moment that surprised me. One afternoon, my brother called. The number was familiar, but I hesitated. When I answered, he spoke quietly, cautiously. I want to explain. Can we meet? I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to listen. Eventually I agreed, setting strict boundaries for the meeting. I knew this encounter could reopen old wounds or worse, put my family at risk. But I also understood that closure is sometimes necessary, even if it comes with pain. When we met, I studied him closely. The charm, the arrogance, the deceit, it was still there, but layered beneath was something new. Vulnerability. He spoke of his regrets, the envy that had driven him, the loneliness he had felt even among family. I listened, not to excuse his actions, but to understand them. Understanding does not equal forgiveness, but it is a step toward peace. As we parted, I realized something important. Life is not about holding grudges or seeking revenge. Life is about learning, adapting, and protecting those you love. My family had survived, and that survival was not just physical, it was emotional, mental, and moral. We had faced betrayal and come out stronger, more aware, more connected. That Christmas, I finally allowed myself to relax, to enjoy the laughter, the lights, and the warmth of my son's joy. But beneath the comfort was a quiet awareness. The world is unpredictable. People are complex, and love requires both trust and vigilance. And sometimes the greatest act of courage is not confrontation, but the steady, silent commitment to protect your family, to guide them, and to keep them safe even when no one else notices. Years later, when I think back to that Christmas, it is not the fear or betrayal that stands out the most. It is the resilience we discovered, the lessons learned, and the quiet strength that comes from facing darkness and choosing to protect what is precious. I tell this story not to frighten, but to remind myself, and anyone who listens, that family is fragile, life is fleeting, and courage is always necessary. Even now, every Christmas, when the lights twinkle and the house is filled with laughter, I remember that night, the unknown call, the letter, the betrayal land. I smile quietly, knowing that we endured, we learned, and we emerged stronger. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of all. After that Christmas, life gradually returned to its rhythm. The house was once again filled with laughter. My son's joy echoing through the rooms, the smell of cinnamon and pine lingering in the air. Yet beneath the surface, I carried the lessons of that night with me, lessons about trust, vigilance, and the fragility of family bonds. I began to see things differently. Small gestures, subtle words, and quiet moments, all of them mattered. I watched my family more carefully, not out of suspicion, but out of care. Every conversation, every laugh, every touch became a reminder that life is fleeting and trust is precious. My relationship with my son deepened. I shared with him stories, not of fear, but of courage, of making hard decisions, and of protecting the people you love. I wanted him to understand that life isn't always fair, that people sometimes make choices that hurt others, but that resilience and integrity define who we truly are. My brother never returned. Nor did I harbor hatred. The letter he left me was enough. It reminded me that some people choose their path, and we can only control our own. Forgiveness, I realized, is less about the other person and more about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. I placed the letter in a drawer, a quiet symbol of closure, and I moved forward. That year, our Christmas celebration took on new meaning. It wasn't about perfection or gifts or lights. It was about presence, about connection, about knowing that no matter the trials, we had survived, and we had learned the value of trust, honesty, and courage. I watched my son place the star on the tree, his smile radiant, and felt a profound gratitude for life's fragility and beauty. I also began sharing my experiences with friends and neighbors, not to frighten them, but to remind them that vigilance is love, that noticing the small signs, listening to intuition, and acting carefully can protect the people you care about the most. Life throws challenges in unexpected forms, but awareness, preparation, and courage can guide you through them. Years passed. That Christmas, which had nearly ended in disaster, became a story I shared each year. Each retelling reminded me of the night the unknown call came, the night that changed everything. And I shared it with my son, carefully emphasizing the lessons of courage, vigilance, and resilience. He listened, wide-eyed, learning that life is complex, that people are unpredictable, but that love and integrity are the forces that keep us grounded. Even now, every time the phone rings from an unknown number, my heart skips a beat. But I no longer fear it. I answer calmly, prepared, aware, and grateful for the lessons learned. Because life, family, and love are worth vigilance, worth effort, and worth courage. Looking back, I realized that the greatest gift of that Christmas wasn't the tree, the laughter, or even the relief. It was the awakening, the understanding that family is fragile, that trust is precious, and that true courage is shown not only in facing the world outside, but in protecting and guiding the ones we love through the storms within. And that, my dears, is the story I carry in my heart. The story of fear and betrayal, of vigilance and courage, and of the enduring strength of family. I tell it now, not for shock or suspense, but as a reminder, life is unpredictable. People are complex, and the bonds that matter most require attention, care, and courage. That Christmas, my son's celebration continued. Laughter returned, the lights glimmered, and peace filled our home once more. And beneath it all, quietly and steadily, was the knowledge that we had survived. We had learned, and we would face the future together, stronger, wiser, and more aware of the fragility and beauty of family. Because in the end, what truly matters isn't the perfection of a moment, but the love, trust, and courage we carry with us. And that Christmas, through fear, betrayal, and uncertainty, I learned that the greatest gift a family can have is each other, always.